Hey, it's Rob, and welcome to Axel's Garage. We finally got out here to install these NiLight light pods on Cosmo, the 2000 Jeep Cherokee. And we did a video on the specs and the unboxing and all that jazz for these NiLight lights, and we'll link it right up here. Now, NiLight was gracious to partner with us in a series of videos, and this will be the second one. We're going to install these on the back of this Jeep Cherokee. And the reason why we're putting them on the back, that we discussed in the previous video, in the unboxing, was that we want Emily, new driver, to have a little bit more light when she's backing up so she doesn't hit things, because it's Emily. And these will look great. They're thin, right, low profile, and we're going to put them under the back bumper, and we're going to try to put them as outboard as possible under the back bumper. The only thing we haven't really agreed on, speaking with the whole crew here at Axel's Garage, is whether we're going to have them go straight out or angle them a little bit, going towards the corners. So we haven't figured that out yet. Going to play around and see. Finding a mounting location should be fairly easy under the bumper, because that's a big, like just a big C channel, thin steel bumper, so should be plenty of room to mount them up under the bumper. The only thing we're going to have to do is find where we're going to tap in power. And in the previous unboxing video, we spoke about power draw and specs and different ways that you can wire these in, and we've determined that the standard reverse circuit on these vehicles, with these LED lights and the LED bulbs that are in the taillight housings, the draw is only going to be about an amp or two more than the stock draw when they had just all incandescent bulbs. And we think that we're going to be good. We actually know that we're going to be good there with only having like a 2 amp additional draw in that circuit. So we're just going to make this easy for Emily. No switch, no anything. She puts it in reverse, these will come on, the reverse lights will come on, and she'll be golden. Now, if you remember years ago, or even when this was new in 2000, what was your options if you wanted to put lights back there, right? A lot of people just took halogen, like 55 watt halogen, you know, round lights or square lights or whatever the old school lights were, and they mounted them under the bumper, they wired them into the reverse circuit. They never had a problem blowing fuse or overloading the circuit, so you're never gonna have a problem now that we've reduced the power consumption down with these LED lights. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull the taillight out, we're going to identify the wires that we need to find, and we're going to see where we're going to make our connection, and then we'll get to the mounting process. Alright, so all I did here was take off the sill plate that goes across the back. Then there was just a couple Phillips head screws. Then I got a couple Phillips head screws that hold the back of this side panel on, and then that just pops right off. Very simple. The taillight, 3 10mm bolts, and that sort of hinges out. Now, this vehicle and these vehicles don't have a wire harness running under them from side to side connecting the taillights together, where you would connect maybe like a trailer connector or something like that. The wires are run inside the vehicle, which is great because they're not getting wet, but it makes it like an additional step when you want to bring some wires down. So on the taillight, the backup light or reverse bulb actually has, and I'll show you here. So if you look at the back of your taillight housing right here, this is the reverse bulb, and it shows you the ground wire, and it shows you, it says major, and then it's got a minor, which there's no wire going to the minor. So major is your power wire, so it's a brown with a green stripe, and your ground is black. So now if you follow this wire harness, it goes up through here and goes inside the vehicle, and it goes to a plug inside the vehicle. Now you can cut these, you can solder wires in, and you can tap right here, but this area is not a weatherproof area. So I would prefer to make my contacts and my connections in a weatherproof area so that I have less of a chance of it failing in the future. Additionally, we have to figure out how we're going to get the wires from the inside of the vehicle to the outside of the vehicle. So we can use this factory grommet and maybe poke a hole alongside these wires, or trying to snake it through, or there's a grommet right here. It's a plastic plug, and it goes to the inside of the vehicle. So we can drill a hole through this plastic plug and run our wires through there, maybe put a dab of silicone around it when we're done to seal it off, but it's probably not going to allow any water in there anyway. This is a soft, you know, rubbery plastic. It's a little plasticky, but it's still rubbery as well. Or we could even drill a nice hole in this and then put a little rubber grommet in it as well before we put the wires through, and that's probably the way I'm going to go with it. So we can make our connections on the inside, bring our wires through here so that we don't have to drill any holes in the body to get them down, because if you notice, we can come out over here and we could go right down behind the bumper right here without drilling any holes and the threat of having any wire get in the way of anything where it's going to get pinched or tangled. So that's probably what we're going to do. We're going to make our connections inside. We're going to come out with our power and ground. We're going to go down through this opening here, and then we can run it across, hit one light, and then hit the second light. So if you follow the wires where they go through and just run your hand down, they go down to a plug that's held in place with a Christmas tree. And I used a Christmas tree, the handiest tool in my toolbox right here. This little pry plastic clip Christmas tree pry removing tool. I love it. Use that to get it off, and then you can unplug the harness. Now if you look at your colors here, you're going to see all the colors here that you have on the back of your taillight. So I got a heavy brown, I got a black, I got a white and orange, I got a brown with a green stripe, and I got a green with a orange stripe. So brown with the green stripe is the wire I'm looking for. So that's that one there. And then our black is the ground. There's only one ground for this whole taillight circle, which is all you need. So if you go back to the vehicle side of this harness, and it's all taped up, so we're going to have to cut back this tape, expose the wires, identify the ones we want. We're going to make our connections here, which will be weather tight connections, and they're not going to be exposed to the elements, which means those connections are going to last for a long time. We don't have to worry about making it weather tight outside the vehicle, which, you know, you could do, but this is just much more reliable having it inside the vehicle where it's not exposed to the elements. All right, I have a grommet assortment kit. I'll link it in the description below, but it gives you a variety of grommets, and what I think I'm going to use in this situation is a grommet that doesn't have the hole in it all the way. So there's rubber, and you poke a hole in it and fish your wires through, and this is a 1/2-inch grommet, and I think that would go perfect right in there. Now if we didn't have an access like that, you could drill a 1/2-inch hole and use the grommet as well. That's an option also if you don't want to use this plug. But I'm going to use a step bit. I put a piece of tape so I know where my 1/2-inch mark is. I'm going to drill right through it, and then I'm going to put the grommet in place. Just to show you what that's going to look like is, it's going to look like this. So the wire's going to come up from the bottom, and they're going to go through the grommet. And what I'll do is, you could put loom on them, you could tape them. Something like this, I usually tape, and I'll tape these together with electrical tape, continuous run to protect the wires. I'm going to use red for positive, I'm going to use brown for negative because I just don't have black, or I can't find my black spool of wire. I'm using 14 gauge wire, which is more than adequate for the draw of these LEDs. And what I'll do here is I'll pull some through, and then I'm going to start taping, and then I'll pull it through with the tape so that the tape goes to about here, so it's a taped wire connection going through the hole I poked in the grommet. Alright, so I got my grommet poking through the tape like that. I taped off about 8-10 inches, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two and I'm going to put them on the ground, and I'm going to bring my wire up through here. Once you do that, you can sort of figure out how much longer you got to do this. You don't want to completely tape up a long run because you got to hit the first light. So I know I can go a little bit more now, so I'll just take the electrical tape, and you can use wire loom, the plastic wire loom, the cloth wire loom, whatever you want to use. Something like this, I just usually tape it over just to give the wire little added protection, and it gives it more of a nice finish in the end. So I'm going to go a couple more inches, maybe another 6 or 8 inches. Like I said, you don't want to go too far because you don't want to have to undo the tape you just dealt with, you just put on, and have to deal with the sticky wires and stuff. So now I can bring my wires through. And then I can get my grommet in place in the hole we made. Get it set in there. And now I have a nice weather-tight connection. And my wires are coming onto the inside. Now inside you want to make your connections. Now you can make them however you want, and I'm not going to even discuss how I'm going to make my connections. You could cut the wires, you can use solder, you can use crimp, you can use low temperature crimps, you can twist and tape, you can use taps, whatever you want to use. I'm not going to get into the discussion of what's good and what's bad. The only good thing to this is it's inside the vehicle, and chances are it's not going to be exposed to weather. So whatever connection you make, as long as it's a solid connection and it's not going to come undone, you should be okay. That's a whole nother video, a whole nother discussion. What are the better connections? I usually, just my preference is I usually solder where and when I can, and when I can't solder, a lot of times I'll use a low temperature solder butt connector. In this situation, I don't even want to say what I'm going to do. I told you what I like the best. You do what works for you. That's a whole nother discussion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the two wires, the brown and the red, brown being our ground because I couldn't find my black spool. I'm going to connect that to the harness on the vehicle side, not on the taillight side, so that if we ever have to pull the taillight and the wiring harness out, we can do that without the wires for the backup lights getting in the way and having to disconnect that. The connection will always be there, and you don't have to screw with it in the future. If this harness ever goes bad, you can replace it without having to deal with it. So I'm going to make my connections, and then once these connections are made, you can button everything back up in the back of the vehicle because you're done. You have your wires coming out the bottom, and now you can put all your trim pieces back, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make my connections, put my trim pieces back, and then we'll continue on. Well, I forgot to turn the mic on, so I'm going to talk about the lights here. And what I'm talking about are the brackets. And the brackets are pretty heavy duty. They're not thin, sheet metal stamp brackets that you normally get with cheap Chinese knockoff LED lights. These are a decent quality bracket. You can mount them outboard like I have them on this light here, or if you really want to measure well, you can mount the brackets and then attach the light afterwards and mount them inboard and make it even more compact, but you have to measure perfectly to do that. I chose the low profile brackets because we wanted it to mount under the bumper as tight to the bottom of the bumper as possible, and did not use the longer brackets that will set it up a few inches from its mounting surface. Here I'm talking about the wire and where it goes into the light. It's sealed up really good with a nice heavy rubber grommet, and it's a long grommet. But, when mounting it under a bumper, you could mount it with the wire up or the wire down. And what my thought was, if you mount it with the wire up, you're going to give a spot for water to sit in that little bevel where the wire goes in and potentially work its way in past the rubber grommet. So we're going to mount it like that with the wire to the bottom, which is probably the way they should be mounted. This way, any water that does get on the light is going to run off, and that's going to make that grommet do its job that much better and hopefully have longer life with less water intrusion. Water intrusion really isn't a big concern because they do have a 2-year warranty, and any light that's going to have a 2-year warranty is going to keep the water out for the most part, because the cheap LEDs seem to have a lot of water intrusion, and that's what makes them go bad. These lights with that 2-year warranty, they do not feel cheap at all. Definitely a good middle of the road light for a Chinese LED light. Not the quality of one of the high-end American-made lights, but this light is definitely going to do its purpose, what we want it for, and it's a great alternative to the really expensive LED lights, and a much better alternative than the cheap ones that you're going to be replacing anywhere from 6 to 8 months down the road, and you're never going to get the light output that you really want. So in summary, I was pretty pleased with the construction of the light, the build quality, all the accessories, and the mounting hardware that it comes with, and just the heavy-duty nature of a good quality, budget-priced light. Alright, so for the mounting, I really wanted them to go here. And I set them up here, and then I said, well, if I do just a little scoot out so that they go in an angle, I thought they looked pretty good there. And then I realized the wheel. And the wheel is right there. So these are going to be constantly getting pounded by road debris, salt, especially up where we live when they brine the roads. They're going to constantly be getting crushed with water and salt and grime, and that's not going to go well no matter what lights you get. This is a great budget light to get, nice and heavy, and I want to give it its best chance. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring them inboard just a little bit so they're behind the fuel tank, and they're going to have less of a chance of getting covered in crap coming off the wheels. There is a bumper mounting bolt right here, so I need to go on either that side of it or on this side of it. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go right on this side of it. So laying underneath, this is as far back as it could go because there is a lip in the bottom of the bumper. And I think I like this spot, so I'm going to mark my hole for that one, and I'm not going to mark this one yet until I get that one in place, because I think what I'll do is I'll bring this one all the way outboard as much as I can. It should be right there just to give it a little angle going that way. And although it kind of looks silly, like I missed when there's one installed, when there's two installed and they're symmetrical, I think they'll look halfway decent. I could always, if I hate it, I could always move it back. All I did was drill an extra hole and nobody will ever see that hole. So now that I got this punch, this hole, it does come with hardware. It's like M6 or 1/4 inch hardware. So I'm going to drill it using the step drill. I'll grab one of the mounting bolts and I'll use that as my guide. Do have the exhaust in the way here, so you got to try to get in there as best you can. So sorting out my bolts, my only complaint so far about the kit is they give you a flat washer for the bolt and they give you a lock washer. So if you lay them all out where you're using your flats and your locks, they give you lock washers for the mounting bolts that have nylon lock nuts. So you don't need lock washers there. What you need is another set of flat washers. So it really needs 4 more flat washers, and they could take out 4 lock washers because they have the nylon lock nuts. So I am going to use the flat washers from the other side mounting hardware, and I'll grab a set, 2 more flat washers from in my parts bin. So now when you put your mounting bolt up, you can fish a flat washer on it, and then your nylon locking nut. So with the 2 lights hooked up, I made my connections, and now I am zip tying all my wires up and out of the way. I have the lights set up so that they're just canted to the outside on each side just a little bit. This way it'll light up behind the vehicle and a little bit to the side of the vehicle. And I'm just going to button my wires up, and then I will show you a few clips of what it looks like in the dark, both from behind the vehicle, which really doesn't show that well by camera, and also looking from the vehicle, away from the vehicle. All right, if weather permits today, I will roll in some clips of Rob from the future taking a look at these NiLight lights at dusk and then when it's dark. All right, so it almost looks like the front of a vehicle, and it's the back. You can see how the lights show every imperfection in my lens, but it really lights up the back view from the quarter panels over here. And then I'm going to give a view from right up on top of the truck, which really shows once I turn the lights on and off. I am very impressed with the light output and what a good job these lights do, putting light out there. And really, I mean, look at the darkness and look at the light. I'm very impressed with these NiLight lights. Well, what'd you think? Hopefully the video came out good. That was the Rob from the future video. But these NiLight LED lights, right? 30 watts each. They seem to show a decent, probably around a 6,000 K color temperature. They're not, you know, a pure white or a daylight, but they are pretty white. They're definitely not blue, but they're on the edge of that white tinge. Real easy install, decent budget light. I mean, much better than the cheap Chinese knockoffs that you get on Amazon that last probably a month. They fill with water, or they cloud up, or they just don't have the output from new. These have the output new. They have a 2-year warranty, which makes me think that they're not going to fill up with water. You know, getting an inexpensive budget light without spending a couple $100 each on a vehicle like this that's mostly just going to get driven on the pavement for the most part, maybe a little bit of trail riding. It seems like a no-brainer to get a light like this, especially with that 2-year warranty that you get. That makes me think at least that the lights are built to last at least 2 years. And if you could get 2-3 years before they get knocked off or they get broken from backing into something, you know, that's pretty good, especially on a vehicle like this. The install went well. You know, all the mounting hardware is great. I just wish they had a couple of more of those flat washers in there. That was the only thing. But you can use your own mounting hardware if you like as well. You don't have to use those Allen-headed bolts and nylon lock nuts that they supply in the kit. You could use your own hardware. 1/4x20 would work just fine, or an M6 if you're going to use metric. It would fit through the holes without any drilling at all. Real easy to wire it into your light circuit. Again, in the first video, we went over different ways you could wire it in. You could use relays, you could use switches, you could just put it into your light circuit if that's what fits your bill, which is really what we wanted in this one, was for it to come on with the reverse. We didn't care about a switch or anything like that. Very straightforward. I like them. If we'll probably do an update video in maybe 6 months or so after we drive this and get it through some good weather, some good New York salty roads in the next 6 months. I'm sure they'll be brining like crazy and we'll have some salty roads, and we'll see if the quality diminished in 6 months. I don't anticipate that it will. They seem to be, you know, like I said, decent budget quality. You know, sometimes you get what you pay for. These you pay a little bit extra, but you're getting that 2-year warranty, and that's going to give you a little bit better of a light, maybe a little bit better of a sealed light, and a light that's going to provide steady output over the course of its life. I seem to like it. Like I said, I'll link everything I used, including the lights and the any of the connectors or tools and everything I used in this video. I always link it in the description. They are affiliate links, so if you choose to buy them, I thank you in advance because that does help me out. And thanks to NiLight for sponsoring this episode of Axel's Garage. We got more NiLight videos coming up. I hope you enjoyed this one. Like I said, my only complaint was the you know, the hardware. You know, maybe a couple more flat washers. That was it. Other than that, they went in as expected. The brackets are good. Everything wired up nice and easy. And so far, I like them. And I'm sure Emily's going to like them. And that's all we got. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching Axel's Garage.